हेलो एवरीवन, वेलकम बैक टू आवर यूट्यूब चैनल। और आज का जो हम टॉपिक डिस्कस करेंगे, हम औरोबिंदो के बारे में बात करेंगे। सो लेट्स स्टार्ट। बिफोर दैट वी हैव UPSC CSE subscription price hike reminder, and the price will increase after 24th October. And the duration of 1 month will be 8,000 to 9,000, 20,000 to 22,500, 36,000 to 40,500, 44,000 to 49,500, and 64,000 to 72,000. So the price hike date has been extended due to multiple requests made by a lot of individuals. So you can get your subscription over here for the 10% discount, and you can simply use this code as a simplet. Unacademy Aspire is providing you with the All India free mock test for the all civil servant aspirant under UPSC CSE Prelims of 2021 Paper 1 JS, and it will be conducted on every 10th and 25th of every month. And we are providing you with the exciting prizes and scholarship for top 50 rank holders. And it will be conducted on 25th October at 10 a.m. sharp. So please mark this date on your calendar. An Academy full-length mains mock paper has been set up for ethics for UPSC CSE, and we have free live special class for those who are really interested in this, and it will be conducted on 25th October at 9 p.m. sharp. So you can enroll for this class. We have special batches for UPSC CSE mains of 2020. We have advanced batch course of a UPSC CSE mains that is bilingual. We have advanced batch course for UPSC CSE mains 2020 in Hindi that actually started from 14th October, and we have advanced batch course for UPSC CSE mains 2020 in English that has already started from 14th October. So you can enroll now for this. We have UPSC CSE complete batch preparation courses that are started from 2019 and will start from 26th October respectively. We have 4 batch courses. We have the first one is in bilingual, in which the medium of instruction is in Hindi, English both. The second one is in Hindi completely, and the third one is in English. And the fourth one is a Mission 2022. It's a 2-year batch course for UPSC CSE. So this one subscription has like unlimited benefits, like you can learn from your home, you have unlimited access to all courses, top educators, full syllabus coverage, double doubt clearing session, live test series, study material will be given to you in the form of PDF. We have proper answer writing sessions under our mentor and guidance. This is also one-stop solution for your complete UPSC CSE preparation, because your structured batches with top educators, batches in Hindi, English, bilingual, late night as well as 2-year batches, full 100% syllabus, full 100% syllabus coverage, and we have late night as well as 2 years. We have late night as well as 2 years batches. Then we have vast range of optional prelims and main test series. We have dedicated double doubt clearing classes, daily current affair practice, English and answer writing practice, performance analysis, and along with that will prepare you for the interview. So this is going to help you in the long term. If you subscribe now, then you will get 10% off. You simply need to apply this code. So T20 daily current affair test series is completely free, and it will be given to you at daily 7:30 p.m. and it will consist of 20 questions for 20 minutes, and it will be for 40 marks each. And we will also give you a test analysis in which you will know about your strength and weaknesses also, and along with that we'll give you your percentile also with the class and the topper. So if you really like our channel, then please like, subscribe and share, and do join on YouTube, Telegram and Facebook. So let's start with Aurobindo. As we know, the closing decades we can see in the 19th century and the dawn of like the 20th century are very like important in the history of modern India. So during this period, we can see the religion and cultural nationalism emerge as a very powerful tool in opposition to the Western inspired liberalism and the British rule that was there in our country. So we can see the Ramakrishnan Paramahansam and the Swami Vivekanand in Bengal, Swami Dayanand Saraswati in Punjab led a very like revival of the interest in the Indian tradition. So this movement resulted in the major attempt to make a reinterpret the Indian tradition so as to instill a sense of pride of among the Indian youth. So another aspect of this movement was the radical political outlook that it took place, and there were two aspects that it reinforced each other. First, that Sri Aurobindo represents the best example in this, as a tradition of a leader who actually provided a very spiritual foundation to the Indian nationalism. So in this unit, we can see a sketch of Sri Aurobindo's life and the major landmarks, how he influences thought, and will provide, and it has been like provided in detail. And then we will analyze about his like philosophical foundations of the militant nationalism in his views of nationalism, and the course of political action that has been like prescribed by him, that has been also analyzed in detail. And at end we have written about his contribution in the Indian modern political thinking that has been evaluated critically. His work, his early life and work. So we can see in the early life, Aurobindo's upbringing was like in completely Western. So for a period of 14 years from 1879 to 1893, he studied in England. So during his period, he actually showed a very extraordinary intellectual abilities. He learned about the various classical modern European language, and during his Cambridge University days, he began to take interest in the Indian politics and came into contact with the young revolutionaries from India. He was also like deeply influenced by the Irish nationalists and the efforts for achieving their independence for Ireland. So when he returned to India in 1893 at the age of 21 with the fire of nationalism burning in him and a strong and absolute will to basically work on it. So now let's talk about this preparatory phase. So basically, on arriving on India, he actually joined the government services in the princely state of Baroda, and at the Baroda, he also undertook a serious study of the Indian history, the philosophical texts, and the Bengali literature. So he was like impressed by the spiritualism underlying that was there in the Indian physical and literature, and this added a very new dimension to his political thinking. So during this period, Aurobindo also wrote extensively about the situation in our country, and he elaborated on the various ideas of nation, nationalism, and etc. So we can see he also remained in touch with the freedom movement that was generally and particularly with the revolutionary activities in Bengal and his interest in the revolutionary politics. But however, he did not just keep away. He does not just keep him away from his spiritual quest. Now, the phase of political activism. So, in 1905, in Bengal, when Bengal was partitioned, this event basically like evoked a very strong resentment towards our country. So, Aurobindo like resigned from his job in Baroda and he plunged into very active politics, which actually marked the beginning of his third phase of life. So, this was a phase of the political activism was very brief. So during this period, he participated in actively in the politics and supported the radical group that was led by Tilak. He participated also in the Surat session in Congress, and he extensively wrote about the various topics of national importance in this period. So in 1908, we can also say that he was like implicated and arrested in the Maniktola bomb case, and he was honorably acquitted in 1909, and after his release he remained very involved in the politics for a short period of time. So in 1910 we can see he withdrew himself from the active politics. He went to Chandranagar and later he moved to Pondicherry. So his sudden withdrawal was a result of his desire for his spiritual development. And in the later phase after 1910, we can see that Aurobindo wrote mainly in the wider context of humanity and its spiritual future. He elaborated his ideas, ideals in the context of human development, and his ultimate goal of was the human unity. So it was so his important works has been like the Life Divine, essays on Gita, the synthesis of yoga, the epic poem Savitri was written during this period of time. So to sum up with all, we can also say that the political activism and the spiritual development were not just separate, but they went together. So his political thought was an extension of this yogic and spiritual vision. So we can see, therefore, before we study his views on the key concepts in politics, it is necessary for us to understand his philosophical foundations from which his political thought emerged. So the philosophical foundation is basically in the Aurobindo's writing reflected basically diverse influences, and the Indian tradition of idealism of philosophy seems to have been impressed in him the most. And there was a great European philosopher, Homer to God, who actually influenced him in the maximum in his like formative period. The study of Gita, Upanishads, Vedanta had a very deep impact on his political thinking. And as a Romain also said that Sri Aurobindo was the highest synthesis of the genius of the Asia and the genius of Europe. He tried to integrate the materialistic trend in Western philosophy with the idealist tradition in the Indian philosophy. So his Vedantic philosophy was also like propounded by Ramakrishnan and Vivekananda, also influenced Aurobindo's thinking. So he was inspired by the remarkable vitality and diversity of all the Indian intellectual tradition, and he believed that the writings of Vedantic sages and the Buddha also reflected the genius of the Indian mind. However, in the later stage, we can see, according to Aurobindo, the Indian philosophical tradition became very narrow in the outlook, and it actually lost its dynamism and vitality. So he was against this, that the Western philosophy managed to retain its dynamism and continued to grow and prosper, but Aurobindo wanted to combine the best elements of Indian and Western tradition into his own philosophical tradition. So in the process of evolution, we can see there was a transformation from the mind of the supermind, and there was a technique of yoga that helps human beings to haste the process. So Sri Aurobindo developed his own technique that we also know as the integral yoga or the Puran yoga, which incorporates the various techniques from four yoga: Karma yoga, Bhakti yoga, Jan yoga, and the Raj yoga, and as well as the tantric philosophy. So through the integral yoga, yogi basically can rise the supramental level, which will bring to him the joy, that means the anand. And the attainment of anand is basically over here the self-realization and assist him in the service of humanity. So according to him, since the matter is not just different from spirit, and gradual evolution of matter will also convert into the pure spirit. So despite like so many obstacles over here in this way, we may also see that Sri Aurobindo slowed down the process, and the advancement of humanity and the direction of spiritual perfection will continue. So in this process, we can see a developed souls will work towards the path as a pathfinders and will struggle hard to find a path for others. Now let's talk about his political thought over here. So we can see there was a close scrutiny of the Aurobindo's writing that show that he wrote extensively on the problem of the current political importance in this early phase of political activity. So his political thought was at that period of time consisted of the views of the Indian National Congress, the British rule in India, the concept of nation and the theory of spiritual nationalism, the program of action, that means the theory of passive resistance, and many more. So his writings were not just in this period must be seen against the political background of a country in the last quarter of the 19th century. His objective was to mobilize the masses and to fight against a foreign ruler, and his ultimate goal was for the full freedom for the country. So now let's read his views on the Indian National Congress. So when Aurobindo returned from England, he observed the political scene and he expressed his views in the writings as Vande Mataram in the journals, and he was critical of the Congress organization and its leadership at that period of time, because he strongly criticized the Congress on four grounds. First, its aim and objective, its composition, motives of leaders, and the method that was adopted by them was the realization of their aims and objectives. So this does not mean that he was basically against the National Congress, but it was contrary. He declared that the Congress was to all us and all is to man, must also dear the most high and the most sacred. So at the same period of time, he does not like hesitate to express his disillusionment and dissatisfaction about its working and about the aims and the objectives of this organization. So he thought that Congress does not have a very clear-cut goal for attaining the national freedom. So the leaders of the Congress were just wasting the time on the trifles and with the certain administrative reforms which are totally inadequate to meet the needs of the people at that period of time. So the demands, therefore, he delivered a very shameful modest. So about the composition of Congress, he thought that Congress was a middle class organization and therefore does not represent the Indian masses. So the newly educated middle class leadership was interested in gaining power, a place in the Indian polity. So he strongly emphasized the need for converting the national movement into mass movement, including the vast number of the proletariats were there. So he strongly believed that with the emergence of Indian proletariat on the horizon of national movement would also have an important solution to the problem by transforming the Congress into a truly national and popular body. So he strongly stressed upon the need for a broad-based organization that could be channelized and the entire power of the country to free them from the foreign rule. So therefore, like his insistence on the enthusiasm, on the enthusing the masses with the spirit for their independence was one of his first efforts that he made the mass character to the Indian freedom struggle. And we can see the second was the nature of British. So Aurobindo's first political writing was in the Hindu Prakash, an Marathi paper that was a direct attack on the British rule. Of course, some of the leaders participated in the nationalism were also like criticizing the British rule at that period of time, but their criticism was quite indirect. So his writing was a departure from his style of expression. He tried to like create a sensation in the country that the justice of Ranade had to basically warn the editor of Hindu Prakash to be careful. Subsequently, the editor also requested Aurobindo to modify his tone, which he did not, rather reluctantly. So we can see the purpose of Aurobindo's criticism of British rule was also twofold. In this first instant, he wanted to strengthen his anti-British sentiments in the country, and secondly, he wanted to break the myth of the British superiority. So this purpose of the Aurobindo's criticism of British rule was basically twofold, and the first instance was that he wanted to strengthen the anti-British sentiments in the country, and second was to break the myth of the British superiority. So the concept of the nation and the theory of spiritual nationalism. So Aurobindo's concept of nation was deeply like influenced by Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, a great Bankim Chandra, a great Bengali novelist, and he believed that the nation is not just a piece of a land or a mass of human being, but it is neither a figure of speech nor the creation of mind. So it is something that is more than like geographical unit or a figment of the people's imagination. So therefore, we can see his concept of nation and profound had a very different from the commonly held the patriotic notions about the nation. So according to that, we can see the Aurobindo's like understanding and the nation is also a mighty Shakti that was composed of all the Shaktis of all the millions of units that make up the nation. So therefore, it was giving them a living entity. So he expressed his deep feelings of love, dedication, and the motherland in the numerous articles and poems, and such patriotism he believed could have worked as a miracles. So therefore, like Aurobindo's definition of nationalism had a very spiritual dimension. So unlike many ordinary patriotic understanding of this term nationalism. So the nationalism in his opinion was not just merely on his political movement, but it was neither a political program nor an intellectual pastime. In his opinion, the nationalism was like akin to religion. It is a faith and a creed in which one has to live. So it is a basically religion which has come from the God, and hence it cannot be crushed down. So even if the attempts were made to for the eternal forces to basically suppress it, it actually re-emerges and survives due to the strength of God in it. So nationalism was immortal. It cannot die because of the creation of the because it is not a creation of human beings, but it is created by God. And if one wants to be nationalist, one must work for his nation. So nationalism, in his opinion, was very deep, ferment, religious sadhana. Nationalist movement sparked off in the partition of Bengal was an opinion of Aurobindo, divinely inspired and guided the movement. Now his final goal is to bring Swaraj. So India's liberation from the foreign domination was the final goal of Aurobindo. The Swaraj, the self-rule of Indians, was not merely in terms of economic political nature. It was necessary for India to go for the spiritual mission that was dedicated towards the upliftment of our humanity. So he clearly advocated for India the following reason: that liberty is the first indispensable condition of the rational development of the intellectual, moral, individual, and political, because it's a very basic necessity for the national life. So hence we can see it was worth for striving its own sake. Secondly, it was a process of development of human beings, spiritual, moral, and advance. It was very important than the material advance. So Aurobindo was basically was of the opinion that India with its own spiritual development was destined to take that led to the progress of the world, and for the reason too India must be free. So India must have like a Swaraj to live well and happily. For this, India should not live as a slave, but as a free people to work for the spiritual and the intellectual benefit of every human race. So the theory of nationalism in this context were basically spiritual nationalism, and it was argued it was called spiritual nationalism because in reality it was religious. that we all know because it has a reactionary in character. So it was basically an attempt made to mobilize the masses of an emotional basis, and by detracting them to the attention from all the real issues like poverty, economic exploitation, inequality, were inimical to the progress of all the individual as well as the community. So it was an appeal that was made to the Hindu religious sentiments in the grab of the cultural heritage of the land. So further we can see it is argued that the regard of nationalism has been one of the major instrument of spiritual perfection, is to be the idealist or visionary for the common person. So to associate religion with politics in the name of spirituality, it was a dangerous proposition for the multi-religious and multicultural society like India. So it argued that the ultimate analysis is the exercise that resulted in the increased strife between Hindus and Muslims for two major religious communities in India, which finally resulted in the partition of the country. So his concept of nationalism clearly indicates a spiritual approach towards politics, and is not just a theory of nationalism, but it's a political philosophy in its totality of the spiritual overtones. And politics for him was an aspect of the broader process of personal, national, international, and spiritual development. So he looked upon the Indian independence as a very essential turn in the life of the ancient land for playing a role in the spiritual guide of humanity at large. So he believed that India's predetermined role, that one should rise to the level only through the teachings of Hindu religion. And nationalism cannot afford to neglect anyone. It is therefore very imperative for the one who brings the whole section of society into the mainstream of political life. So in the Indian context, we can see that he believed that all sections basically includes the tribal communities that were also outside of Hindu civilization, but must be part of this process of the international, because as nationalism excludes none. So in this sense, Aurobindo's followers also say this concept of spiritual nationalism should be understood by everyone. Now let's see his emphasis on the political issue. So critics only clearly pointed out that Aurobindo paid less attention to the social reform, and perhaps more important, which were more important and urgent at that period of time. And the defense of the radicals was in regard that was matter of giving his preference in the light of circumstances that was existing at that period of time. So to them, the problem of social reform was not just very unimportant in comparison, but an issue for national independence that later was considered a matter of primary importance. So Aurobindo had like a very clear approach over here, and he stated that the political freedom is the life breath of a nation, and he attempted the social reform, educational reforms, and the industrial expansion and the moral improvement of the race, without aiming first and the foremost at the political freedom is the height of ignorance and futility. Now let's conclude this presentation. So basically his theory of spiritual nationalism is a very unique contribution to our modern thought, and his writing inspired every educated youth of his time to take up the cause for national freedom. So by interpreting his concept of nationalism in terms of spiritual, he gave a very new dimension towards the national movement, and he tried to lift up the economic political context and give a new kind of spiritual idealism that was set before by the nationalists in the country. And secondly, by advocating a complete freedom for everyone from the foreign domination as the final goal of freedom struggle, he brought a very important change in texture of a national movement. So it was quite a bold stand that was taken by him. The moderates were spearheading the national movement, and he emphasized the need for the mass mobilization, the participation of all the sections of society, and the national movement was back there in the 1893. So in this sense, he was a true democrat, and he was relying on the action that was like many other rather than this intellectual initiative of few. So his advocacy of the passive resistance created a sense of renewed confidence among the masses and exposed the contradiction between the myth and reality of the British Raj in our country.